How's everything going in Bergen County over
It's crazy.
there?
It's very crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
see you have a lot going on from your emails.
yeah, and that doesn't even capture half of it. You know, but to kind of get the meeting kicked off, I do want to check in with the three of you, if anyone's willing to share, and what they're maybe hoping to learn, maybe something that's going on that I can gear this towards, or you know, any type of sharing is helpful because then I can make it a little more personalized for the people that showed up.
Waiting for you guys.
Mm.
And if not, I have stuff ready.
Well, yeah. For me, I mean, I've always enjoyed the meditations, and probably ever since
Voy a
you
estar
started.
trabajando.
Um, I would say it was like a few years ago now, maybe like around COVID time, maybe even before, when like Alyssa was working here, was when you was probably like when I was first like introduced to meditation. I mean, I've heard about it like before, but I think you were the first one to sort of introduce me to it, and then I did a few of your guided meditations. And I've also done some Wim Hof meditation also. I don't know, you're probably familiar with him.
Yeah.
And um, I've been doing that. I've been trying to do it like every day. And actually, I would say last year and the year before, I was probably a little bit more consistent. But I'm still doing it at least like a few times a week. And and even like during the day when I don't do like a full meditation, I'll try to do like maybe a little bit like in between breaks or like in the car. I'll do like a short one that might just be just like a few breaths like in and out. And I found it always like kind of like calms me and sort of like grounds me in a way. And yeah, it just makes you feel kind of more relaxed. And and actually, I've even found even on days that let's say I forget to do it,
Yeah.
I actually still feel pretty relaxed and pretty calm. And I don't know if that's like from doing it for like a couple of years or if that's just, maybe me adjusting to the way things are. Maybe it's my diet. I don't know. Maybe it's like a whole combination of things. But yeah, so that's sort of like how I felt. I felt even when I've done like the short ones, I've found it like to help me.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, a big part of meditation is letting go of how you think things are supposed to be, right? Stepping out of the self-centered thinking and dropping into, reality, right? Living a life-centered experience rather than a small-minded, self-centered one. And I think, the more that you're able to kind of step out and be okay with things as they are, the less your mind is frantically running around trying to escape and struggle and resist. So on one level, yeah, I mean, you're training your mind over and over again to just be here from a place of awareness, from a place of non-judgment. Does the tranquility and calm stay forever? No. um, and everything changes and ends. So we don't want to take refuge in feeling a certain way. We don't want to take refuge in our mind being a particular way. In the same way, we don't want to take refuge in our bodies being a particular way, because all of that's going to change and end. And like being able to rest in, um, that space that is open and free, and living from that space. I think that's what we can start taking refuge in, that unchanging place, that stillness, that silence, that bearing witness, that loving awareness, whatever you want to call it, that's at the depth of our being, which is who we essentially are. And you don't have to believe me if you don't want to, but I think that if you practice long enough, you start to see, wow, I've been sitting for years and I've seen different moods, I've seen different thoughts, and I've experienced, a body that's aging and going through changes. I've had different emotions and feelings. Sometimes I've sat there with grief, sometimes I've sat with joy, and you realize that everything is constantly changing, and yet there is this unchanging, unshakable awareness that holds it all. And that's what I think you start getting more and more in touch with. I call it a profound okayness, because it doesn't mean that everything's magically better. It doesn't mean you don't get angry anymore. It doesn't mean you don't struggle or suffer at all. But there's this place that can hold it. And, Tara Brach, I've been quoting her lately. She says, however it is, there's room for it. And that's really the approach to practice, at least the way that I present it. That's what makes the most sense to me. That's what's most practical, because I can make you feel good for 20 minutes, and that's great, but how does that help you? How does that help you when you're in situations where you can't feel good, right? You get an illness, or a disease, or you get in an accident and you have chronic pain, or you lose somebody, or you get fired from your job, or fill in the blank for all the possible things that can happen in this world. How do we practice in a way that actually can help us with that, with the reality? And what I wanted to introduce today and then do a meditation on was the practice of R.A.I.N. So I don't know if you ever heard of R.A.I.N, but it's really a way to deal with suffering when it arises. And I think the key to meditation is changing our perception about suffering. Because when we first come to this practice, we show up with all these problems, with these parts of ourselves we don't like, these experiences we want to get rid of, anxiety, depression, anger, addiction, whatever it might be. And we're fighting so much against those things, and we're struggling, and we're creating so much suffering on top of what's already unpleasant. And then I come along and I say, we're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to make it better. We need to change the way we perceive it. We need to see suffering as necessary fertilizer for wholesome, spiritual, meditative, whatever you want to call it, qualities of mind. And we can use the things that we don't like about life as a way to strengthen, cultivate wholesome qualities of mind. So literally, the things that we used to run away from, we struggle with, we fight, we resist, they literally become our practice. And it's not like these problems are a detour to our spiritual path or our meditative path. Again, fill in the blank for what you want to call this. But the detour is the path. And it's our job to go right through that. We're going to go straight through it. And we're going to get to know it. And we're going to look around the whole time. And we're going to learn something and become wiser. And we're going to allow it to soften our hearts and open our hearts and allow us to be more compassionate and more empathic, more understanding. So I feel like the practices that I really like to teach and that I think people resonate the most with and that people benefit the most with are the ones that deal with our suffering. Because why do we show up to these things? Most likely because there's some kind of suffering. It doesn't have to be this big trauma, but it might be chronic stress. Maybe you're just getting mad all the time. Maybe you just don't know how to deal with your mind when it's obsessing. whatever it might be, we're here for a reason. There's some discontent. There's some unease or dis-ease. Things don't seem right. Things seem like they should be different. And this is what we want to work with. These are the ingredients. So one way or one method is R.A.I.N. Now, R.A.I.N stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and then traditionally the N would be non-identification. Another way I've heard it is nourish. So I'll go over both of those. But generally, with the traditional understanding of it, the recognize, allow, and investigate is kind of the practice, and then the non-identification is kind of the result. When you introduce nourish, it just adds a whole dimension of practice. So I'll go through both, and then we'll actually do a meditation based on it. So the R stands for recognize, and this is the key to everything involved in this practice. Awareness, or attention, right? We're cultivating this ability to show up to our lives just the way they are, and just like just like we said before, this ability to just be here and be at ease with whatever's here, and it's such a different way of meeting reality, because we normally think of it or experience it through the filter of, what does this have to do with me? Do I like this experience? Is it pleasant? If it is pleasant, the habit is, how do I hold this? How do I maintain this? I finally have it. I got it all together. I feel good. How can I hold this just like this forever? And then on the opposite side, it's like when suffering comes along, when pain, when difficulty, then we look at it and say, like, how do I push this away? Like, I don't want this. And how can I avoid this? How can I make sure that I never feel this? And then, we live, in this kind of like, I don't know, seesaw, or like almost like a yo-yo, up and down, of like clinging when things are well and trying to desperately hold on, and then, running away and scrambling around when things aren't going right and when they feel bad. And we're never resting. We're never feeling relief. We're never at ease, because it's this constant push and pull every single day. And, recognizing and just being aware of these processes and starting to pay attention moment by moment, day by day, it really starts to break up that unconscious, or those unconscious patterns of mind that are constantly pushing you around. And by the way, your body reacts to what your mind thinks. And what your mind thinks is not always what's happening. So, we could get blood work, and the whole week we could think we have cancer. And we can make ourselves believe that, and we'll actually feel like we're sick. We might start feeling symptoms. We might feel fear and anxiety. And all of those emotions are not based on any reality at all, except our mind. So it's an important insight to have, that most of the time our emotions are just reacting to our perception, to our thoughts, to our judgments, to our storylines. And when we're not paying attention, that all can just play out, and it'll just kick our butts. But when you're able to recognize, well, then there's a chance for freedom, right? And I always say this, and it doesn't necessarily seem like it's a big difference or a big deal, but it makes a tremendous difference. If worry arises in your mind and then ultimately in your body, and you feel panic and fear and your mind is worrying, if you say, I'm worried, that's very different than I'm aware that worry is arising. And again, it's the same experience. It doesn't magically feel better. But on one hand, the worry is who you are. And there's a lot of guilt and shame with it. Why do I think this way? What's wrong with me? And then we're constantly caught in it. We're indulging in it. We're giving it ground to stand on, walls to dig its claws into, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and it can go on forever. If we're aware, well, that's very different. We notice, oh, mind is worried. Right? Just saying that, oh, mind is worried. It's no longer who I am. Right? And that's getting a little bit ahead to the non-identification part. But it's no longer me. It's just a pattern of mind. For whatever reason, based on the conditions of my life, my mind is conditioned in this way, and it's playing the software, right? The software's running. It's like if I double-click something on my computer, unless I force quit, it's going to run the program. And that's what happens in our lives. We go through our day, something happens, double-click. There's the anxiety program. Boom. And it runs and it plays itself out. And if we're not paying attention, that's who we are. But if we have awareness, it's just something we're experiencing. And that's more manageable, that's much more workable. So recognize, it's so important that your practice is not just sitting for 10 minutes a day, it's how am I meeting this moment right now? And that's every moment. Am I paying attention? How am I meeting this? How am I meeting the thoughts that are arising? The feelings, the things going on in my body. And that's where our freedom is. We don't get to choose how our body ages, right? Like, yeah, we can exercise, but we don't get to choose whether it gets sick or not. We don't get to choose when and how it ages. And it's the same with our mind, with our emotions. You know, it's like nobody wakes up saying, I can't wait to feel depressed. It's just there it is. All of a sudden, there's a heaviness that rolls in. And we have to figure out how to relate to it. So the freedom is not in squashing the feeling and never feeling it again. It's in I get to choose how to relate to this. And if I'm recognizing that something's happening, then there's more of a chance that I can choose to respond in a way that leads to ease, that leads to a more wholesome future, right? Because every single moment, every single choice, every single thing that we do right now is creating the next moment. So if I pick up that worry and I become it, well, that's making it that much easier to pick it up tomorrow and pick it up the next day. And we're just strengthening that habit. But if I practice awareness, then we're not indulging in that habit. And over time, you know, it's like it's almost like a river flowing down the stream, and it's just stuck in this whirlpool, and it's just, you know, slowly we start to move the rocks out of the way, you know. And that's like how it is when we pay attention. We're changing the conditions, and eventually if you move all the rocks, there's no more whirlpool. The water can flow free. And it's the same, like the patterns are like stuck, and we're indulging in them and we're keeping that stuck. But then when we start recognizing, it starts to change, it starts to free up, and those patterns lose their strength ultimately. Do they go away? Some of them, maybe. But more often than not, they just lose their stickiness, they lose their seductive, you know, quality. You don't get hooked as much. You don't get, you know, caught in it as much. So, you know, I know I'm kind of sticking on the R, but it's such an important point that our practice is literally pay attention moment by moment and experience what you're experiencing while you're experiencing it. You know, say that 3 times really fast. Experience what you're experiencing while you're experiencing it. Sounds simple, but it's actually a really advanced and difficult practice to really bring attention like that. So that's why we need to practice. So once we recognize, hey, this worry's arising, and so is the fear, right? The body's reacting to the what if thoughts. So the mind's creating a reality where everything's terrible and you're dying and this is going to be painful and you're going to be it's going to be horrible. Your body's reacting to it, and we recognize that's happening. Then we move to the A, allow. And again, each one of these like practices is going against what the norm is for our mind. So the norm is resist, fight, struggle. How can I find relief? I don't want to feel this. Let me take a drink so I don't worry anymore. Let me pop that pill. Let me go eat the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Let me quickly get on social media and watch funny videos for 3 hours. You know, we want to run away. We can't bear to be sometimes in our own skin. And that's the issue. It's not life. It's not that, it's that we can't bear to experience what we're experiencing. And we're not willing to feel what we're feeling and experience the thoughts that are arising because they're very real, they're very scary, and we haven't done any work. We haven't done any of the training to see that they can't actually hurt us. So with allow, we're going against that struggle and we're training ourselves to open. Right? Think of like these moments when we're struggling, we're contracting. We're contracting into a small self. We're holding on to something and then we're contracting around it. Meditation is a habituation toward openness. So we allow, we stop fighting. And this can be so powerful. And just the other day I was working with someone and her problems are manifesting in her body. It's just causing swelling and achiness in her joints. So her whole attitude is, I want to do all these practices to get rid of this. And this is the yo-yo, right? We're just right back to square one. And then I, come and talk with her and say, well, we're going to try something different. We're going to let ourselves feel the pain, right? Clearly your body is telling you something. Your body is trying to get your attention. Something is trying to say, hey, listen to me. We're going to give it that opportunity. And that's what allowing really does, is it allows you to deeply listen to your body, to your heart, to your mind. And, sure enough, and this is a very common experience, no guarantees, of course, but a pretty common experience is that when we just sit and we say, okay, you can be here. And if it's an achy knee or an anxiety or a worry, we can even say, get as big as you want. You can come sit with me. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to relax. I'm going to open. And you can just express yourself however you want. I'm listening. I'm here. Let's go. It's like an open mic night. Okay, go ahead. And you'll find that there is relief. And 9 out of 10 times, whatever it is that's bothering you becomes a little less intense. It doesn't magically go away. It doesn't mean all your problems are solved. But it brings a sense of relief. And one teacher, I think it was Ajahn Chah, was asking his monks about a big boulder, and he said, is that boulder heavy? And they all look at it, they don't know how to answer. And he goes, only if you're carrying it around. And it's the same with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our patterns. When we're allowing and aware, we're not holding them in the same way. We're not carrying them around as this burden of me, and this is my problem, and my mind is so heavy, and what's wrong with me? There's not this identification anymore. We're just watching things follow their own nature, thoughts, emotions, and there's this sense of relief. So by allowing, we bring a little bit of relief. And what does that look like? How do you do that? For me, I just go hand to the heart. I close my eyes and I allow myself to feel what I'm feeling, no matter how horrific it might feel. And over the years of doing that, I've realized that a feeling can't hurt me. It can feel really bad for a certain amount of time, but it hits a peak, and then it ultimately has to change and end. And because I've experienced that for myself, I know that whatever I feel, whatever mood I'm in, whatever experience I'm having, it will change. And I can bear witness to it without having to get that immediate, unskillful relief. And this is all like the gift of just simply allowing. Just to say, okay, Wary, you can be here too. And then finding out, Wary, where do you live in my body? And let's see what that feels like. Okay, there's that tightness in my chest. You can be here. And you breathe with it. You relax with it. Not to get rid of it, but just to be there with it. To become intimate with it. The way out is through, and that's how we do it. So if you're wondering, how do I do it? Well, there you go. You pause and you let it be there. How do you let go? You let things be as they are. So then we move to the I. Again, it goes against the habit of, not really knowing the nature of things, right? We just assume I'm an anxious person, right? That's an assumption. That's a perception. And that's not really based in truth, right? You might experience tightness in your chest multiple times a day. That's true. But to create a whole identity around it, and then think something's wrong with you, and then want to be some other way, and then looking on social media and thinking nobody else feels this way, which is nonsense, and all that extra suffering for what? Because you experience heaviness in the chest a few times a day, or a nervousness in the stomach, or a couple of thoughts that are, fearful or worried. Like, those are all passing experiences that are completely workable. And the key to investigation is to become curious. So in that moment of suffering, go into it. What is it? What is this feeling that I'm so afraid of? And what happens if I let it be there? How long does it last? What happens if I hold it with loving awareness? Does it change? Does it open up to something deeper? Is there space behind it? So, to really, and, this is very wordy because I have to explain it to you. But the actual practice is more of just like inquiring through feeling, through experiencing. It's a very embodied investigation. And you're not narrating the whole time. It's like, instead of saying, oh, there's a tightness in my chest, you're just exploring that actual felt sense, and you're feeling it, and you're just, wow, you're listening by feeling. And so that's the I. And then the N, like I said, so on one level, the result of doing R.A.I.N, right, recognize, allow, and investigate, is that you don't cling to these things anymore. Because if you're in awareness, if you're letting your mind and your emotions do what they're doing, and you're looking deeply at it with, the investigative, curious mind, well, then you're no longer the worry, right? You're the witness to worry. You're the awareness of worry. You're holding worry within, vast, spacious awareness. So in that process, you're not clinging to it. And you're no longer putting your personal identification with these conditions of suffering. And so things change. Things start to open up. Things start to fall apart, and in a good way. They start putting you in touch with who you really are. The other definition of N is nourish. And what I like to do, so maybe you're investigating for a bit, you're relaxing with it, you're letting it be there. But then I like to introduce this, compassion practice. So, think of what would make you feel better in that moment. And then sending out a wish to yourself and all other people feeling exactly the way you are right now, for whatever it is that will make you feel better. If it's worry, may myself and all people worrying in this moment find peace of mind. If it's, grief or loss, may everyone, including myself, who are feeling this incredible grief from a loss, may we all find ease in our hearts. So now you're taking something that normally would be such a problem in your life, and you have a practice that's strengthening your ability to be with things as they are, to live in an open and accepting way that cultivates compassion and empathy, and it makes it a little less overwhelming. So now it's like every moment of suffering is this chance to deepen your practice and to open your heart. So I like to throw that in at the end. So it's not just all, let me feel this and breathe with it, but then it's like, man, I wonder how many other people right now are feeling this way. Just like me, just as confused, just as lost, just as, struggling just as much. And may myself and everyone, find their way. And it's really powerful if you can meet your suffering and begin to like associate suffering with compassion practices. Then that's going to be second nature. So then when any form of suffering arises, it could be yours, it could be someone else's, you're able to be right there and be of most use because you've let this open your heart already and you've trained yourself to meet it with love, with compassion. And these are the types of people we need in this world. We don't need more reactive people. There's plenty of reactive people. I was at a red light today. Wasn't sure if I could turn on red there. I missed the sign, so I sat for an extra minute. And this woman behind me screaming. Just like,
Oh, that's funny.
I just turn and she comes by and I shake. Well, I did shake my head at her. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and it's like early. It's like you're rushing probably to get to a job you don't even like. It's like, why are you so mad? Like, yeah, I'm doing you a favor, But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of reactive people, a lot of very unhappy, afraid people that are struggling. And, when, especially with some hot topics that are out there today, it's like, it's black or white. And as soon as someone brings up one view, then there's an attack, and then that's never going to fix anything. I mean, that's exactly what's causing the problems in the world to begin with, is this back and forth, this reactivity, this holding on, clinging to our suffering, clinging to our pain. So we need someone, more than someone, we need a lot of people that are capable of bearing witness to suffering without reacting, in an unwholesome way, that have the freedom to respond rather than get lost in our, kind of primal ways of reacting in those situations. And these are very practical, simple things that you can do every day, anytime. And it doesn't have to just be suffering, right? You can do this practice when you feel good, right? And maybe you wake up and everything's working out. You feel completely at ease. You just feel happy. Life means something, to you in that day, and it's just really good. You recognize, you consciously allow yourself to feel that. That's a great practice. I forget the person who really pushes that, but there's a teacher that really talks about when you're feeling good, consciously feel it and let it spread through your whole body and get your body and mind used to feeling good. So it's a nice practice. But then, with that nourish part, like, send it out to everybody. May everyone in the universe feel this good today, and so whatever comes your way, good or bad, you're using that to just go deeper, to cultivate more and more that garden of wisdom, that garden of compassion. So that's R.A.I.N. So before we do the sitting, is there anyone that has any comments, any questions? You can type in the chat if you're nervous. And you have to unmute, because I've been muting all of you just because sometimes there'll be noise and then I get very distracted.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually had a similar experience today. I was driving on the Garden State, and I was in the left lane. There was like 3 lanes, so I was in the left lane, and like all 3 lanes were going like pretty slow because there was kind of like moderate traffic, and like up ahead there was like even more traffic. So it's like you couldn't really go like that fast, and I was going like probably like a little faster than the speed limit, not too fast, but like the guy behind me was just like tailgating me, kind of like angrily, and I'm like thinking to myself, like, even if he passes me in like a minute or two, there's gonna be like more traffic build up, and he's not like even gonna go like anyway.
Right.
And yeah, so he was actually like weaving in and out of lanes, and even like 5 minutes later, I saw him. We were like in the same spot. So like he didn't even like make up like any room. So yeah, it was kind of funny that you mentioned that like people kind of like react and like sort of like in their own head in a way,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
And to
But
see,
yeah, another thing you said I found interesting the allowing part, like allowing yourself to like feel the emotions, whether it's like worry or anxiety, and yeah, I think that's definitely like important. It seems like, especially for like some of my clients, it's probably hard for them to experience that, and I feel like probably like a lot of people like to like probably like skip over that part
that's
because
called
it's like
spiritual
that's probably like the
bypassing.
hardest part is like sort of like allowing.
Yeah, that's spiritual
Uh,
bypassing. Everybody's looking for that.
yeah,
The secret
yeah.
mantra, the
So
secret pill, whatever. Just so I don't have
yeah,
to experience this.
yeah, because it almost seems like that allowing almost might be like might make the person feel worse, but maybe that's like necessary in order to feel better. Uh, People don't want to like feel that emotion or like to feel worse. So it's like, do I like allow myself to feel this, or do I just kind of like maybe I'll skip to like the I or the N and like don't do the A.
You know,
So that's
it took me a long time to realize and accept that freedom doesn't necessarily mean I feel good. You know, um, is there more ease? Do I have the ability to just be with things? Like, I'm not saying there aren't fruits to the practice, because there are. But, think of like the example I would use is like an alcoholic who's sober, right? Sobriety is a form of freedom, but it doesn't feel good, right? Because there's cravings, there's all the feelings that they have to experience and be with that they've been running away from. So one teacher said there's two kinds of suffering: one that leads to more suffering and one that leads to freedom. And in the case of the alcoholic, drinking all the time, that's suffering that continues forever, right? It's just you drink, you feel better a little bit, then you wake up, you feel worse, and you have to drink again, and that's just endless suffering. Whereas not picking up that drink and dealing with cravings without, like refraining from following cravings, and then learning to deal with emotions at like from a spiritually mature place, and having to just realize that that's part of life. And it's very difficult, but that brings you to freedom. Like, I'm free to live the way I want to. I'm not imprisoned by my conditioning. And I'm not saying that, I think with practice and time there is definite ease that comes, and that profound okayness is always there. But that doesn't necessarily mean everything's easy and feels good. So it's an important insight to have. And then, just to go back to your car example, what's been coming up for me, yes, like of course I get frustrated at first and my defenses kick in, but then it's like, what's going on in that person's life that they're so stressed out that this sitting at a corner for an extra 10 seconds completely ruins their day and makes them want to like really harm me. What's going on? Like what kind of stress is that person under? What kind of life did they have? How are their relationships? Like how do they talk to themselves? What are they struggling with internally? And I just allow that person, yes, to be an idiot on one level, right? But on another level, to be a human being that's really suffering in probably many ways that we're not able to see on the surface. So
yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I guess having like a little bit of compassion for that person, even though they might be being rude to you in a way, but at the same time, um, you understand that like people are going through things also.
Because would they be
And so,
screaming right away if everything was going fine
yeah, that's true.
and they felt
Yes.
great and they were happy and life was
Yeah,
meaningful and things were going well? No,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
not necessarily.
mm,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah. No, that's an interesting insight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess it's something I don't think about. Maybe people don't always like think about when they're like on the road or something. Like we typically don't think about, what that other person's going through. It's like, oh man, they're just being mean or being rude, and that's sort of what we kind of come to think. But yeah, I think that's a good insight to have.
Yeah, and then in the chat, it was if you want to be free of something, you will have to suffer first the separation of any bad situation or habit. And it's very true. I mean, if you live a life of thrills, for example, coming back to ordinary, mundane, everyday life, it's painful at first because you're so used to the highs, you're so used to whatever it might be, that everyday life can seem dreadful and completely boring and filled with just this emptiness. But over time, you keep showing up with that, and, things start to change and end. It's not, you're not stuck like that. So if there isn't anything else, we'll try a quick little R.A.I.N practice. This can be done on the spot, or this can be done as a formal meditation like we're going to do it. So just keep that in mind. So find a comfortable seated position. Hands on the knees or in the lap. Sit up tall. Close the eyes. And the first thing that we experience is the R, recognize. A very simple instruction. Just notice what's happening. Notice what it feels like to sit in this position you're in. Notice the thoughts, the emotions. Notice the body, if there's any aches or pains or tightness. Notice the breath going in and out. Notice the sounds. And anything else that arises, just simply notice it all. And as we're noticing, we're doing so with the attitude of allowing. And how do we allow? We just leave things alone. It's not suppression. It's just not engaging with thoughts, not engaging with our emotions, not engaging with the sensations that we're feeling, not engaging with the sounds. Fully experiencing it all, right? Recognizing, experiencing, but from a place of openness. It's as if we just became empty space and we're just holding it all. Nothing is left out. Nothing's not supposed to be here. And there's no particular way it's supposed to be. It's just how it is. And even if the mind is kicking and screaming about it, well, that's just how the mind is right now. And we hold that too. And we see that. Wow, look. Mind is kicking and screaming, having a tantrum. Look at that. And as you're sitting here aware, there's a good chance that your mind's going to fixate on something in particular. It might be a thought or a thought stream. It might be an ache in your knee. It might be an emotion that's arising. It might be a sound. But see whatever your awareness kind of naturally is drawn to, and let's start to investigate. The first thing to really investigate too is the feeling tone of what you're focusing on. So for example, if I have an achy knee, the feeling tone is unpleasant. Right? And the categories are pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Or maybe you're feeling really relaxed and you just feel this warmth in your chest that feels good. And you're focusing on the warmth. Well, notice how it has a pleasant feeling tone. But then look deeper at it. Is what you're experiencing permanent? Or is it something that's fluid and flowing? Because even pain, it seems permanent, but it's always ebbing and flowing. Sometimes stabbing, sometimes aching, sometimes all of a sudden better for a moment, and then squeezing and then back to stabbing. So whatever your mind's focusing on, see if you can see the nature of that thing. Was it always here? Will it go away? Where does it go when it goes away? You know, and everything we look at is like a rainbow. Certain conditions come together and they express themselves as this rainbow, but there's not really anything there. It's just the light hitting the water, and then it gives this illusion of something solid, something real, something unchanging. But then as soon as the clouds change or the sun moves, it's gone. Was it ever really there? Is it anything at all? So look at the emotion, the thought, the sound, the feeling, the pain, the ache, with those same curious eyes. Is this really who I am? Do I have to struggle with it? What happens if I leave this alone? How long does it last? Right? Be willing to look. And then if it is something that's painful or difficult, you know, a restless mind, a pain in the body, a difficult emotion, then we'll go to the N and nourish. Let your heart shift from I'm suffering to there is suffering. This is part of life. And there are other people just like me. And let your heart open. And send out a wish that you, yourself, and everyone feeling like you right now, find some ease. Be pain-free. Have a calm mind. Have good health. Are safe, whatever it might be. If you want, you can put one hand to the center of the chest and one to the belly. I just love this for the compassion part, because you feel the literal warmth of your hands. And that can help strengthen the emotional and spiritual warmth that we're trying to cultivate. We're holding ourselves and we're holding all others that feel just the way we feel. So from here, we can all take a deep breath together, biggest breath of the day, in through the nose, out the mouth. You can slowly drop the hands down. And when you're ready, you can slowly open the eyes. So whenever you're suffering, you can do it just like we did, very formal, take your seat and go through it. Or you just, wherever you are, do it on the spot. Even if you're around people, they're not going to know. You don't have to go like this, or close your eyes or do some weird thing. You can just recognize what you're feeling. Allow it, bring that kind of unconditional friendliness, habituate yourself towards openness and just, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, let me feel it. Nobody knows, first of all, what you're feeling, and then nobody knows how you're relating to it. I mean, that's all private stuff that you can do in front of anybody. They'd have no idea. And then be willing to investigate and just, as you're feeling it, look at it and inquire about it. And then, you end with that wish. And it could all, it could take you all, 3 minutes if you really wanted to? Even less. I wouldn't rush it, but you could if you didn't have the time or the space. Or you could return to it later when you get home and sit with it for 10 minutes. So yeah, this has been something that I've been, feeling the urge to teach lately, and I hope it was helpful. I hope that you guys don't just think of it as a cool idea and talk about it, but actually go out into your life and do it every time there's something uncomfortable, unpleasant, difficult, or like I said, when you're feeling good as well, share that, because we need that as well. So I'll open it up for comments or for questions one last time. No pressure.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, felt really nice to be able to, having the awareness of your feelings and also to I think it's important to sit with those feelings and and to try to navigate that first, and then I think it makes you feel better in the long run. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's definitely an important practice. It's it'd be good to incorporate this, not just for me, but for caregivers and our clients as well, to be able to teach this to other people. Yeah, I think it's very important.
And I give you full permission to share this with everyone, your clients or the clients of the community, with all the caregivers. You could post this on your website, on YouTube, through an email. For me, it's just, how do I get this to the most amount of people? And obviously anyone can reach out to me if they are interested in furthering their understanding or needing somebody to inspire them, and keep them committed to their practice. But just this alone, if just somebody just took this one practice and spent the rest of their life doing it, they would be in such a better place,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for allowing us to share this with others. And I think it was also great for me to do it as well. And I think being able to incorporate it myself, then I'll be able to sort of teach it to like other people or like tell other people about it, you know.
And
'Cause I
there's a
think
great book.
it's
There's a
good
great
to.
book on R.A.I.N by Tara Brach called I think it's called Radical Compassion. Her first book was Radical Acceptance, and she has a
Mm,
second book. I want to say Radical Compassion, but it really
mm,
focuses on R.A.I.N, and she's very big on R.A.I.N. So if you want to
mm,
explore it further,
right.
Tara Brach is a great resource.
Okay, great. Yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
And
Is it Brock is the last name? It's Brock
Brach, yeah.
ACH. Okay.
And if are you
Yeah, right.
okay if I share this to my stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe I can after the meeting is over, I'll try to upload it, you know, as a file, and I can share that with you.
Yeah, I actually have it
Yeah, sure.
recorded on something called Loom, so I could send you a link of it if you want.
Oh, okay, great.
Be
Yeah.
easier.
Okay. So like the meeting I recorded now, you're able to just upload it yourself. You can like.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
separate
Okay,
program,
great.
but yes.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, yeah. If you can send it to me,
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be great.
I will. I'll send it right away.
Great.
Mark, thank
All
you. Thank
right.
you for